All right, I wanted to continue our experimental animation idea and show you another way of using some mixed media in the work. I have these frames here of actual paint. And I want to do basically the same thing that we did the other day, looking at how we can remove the background in a quick and easy way where it doesn't require a lot of time. So I actually just spent a little bit of time troubleshooting this. I was having a little bit of difficulty making it work, but I think that I've gotten it down now. So let's hope that that is the case. I'm going to open this first frame in Photoshop. And I want to use something here called an action, which the actions help you achieve, they help you deal with a large number of files and achieve a action, a repetitive thing over and over that you don't want to have to do manually. You want the computer to do manually for you. And so we can tell the computer to delete these sections, and we have to record the action. That's what we're going to do now. Sorry. So I'm going to come up here to Window, Actions, and I'm going to make a new folder, which I'm going to call Delete. And then in Delete, I'm going to make a new action called Delete Background. Now it's going to start recording. You can see that the red record light has turned on, but it's not actually recording my mouse movement. It's just recording the buttons I press. So the first thing that I want to do is turn off the background lock. Turn off the lock. This is going to allow for transparency. Next thing I want to do is select my magic wand tool. And this is what I was having trouble with before. So this is going to actually, where you click does determine some about how your selection is made and how the action is going to take place. So we want to make sure that we click in a space that is probably equal. We're getting this white area and on all of our frames. So equal area across all of our frames where we know that there is going to be this white background. I know that my card that I have is kind of like, it gets larger and smaller, but I kind of registered it down in this right corner, this top left corner, so that I could come up here and sort of select this area. So if I select right here, I know across all of my frames that there's probably not going to be any paint right here, and there's probably not going to be any chair right here. So I'm going to hit delete, and then I'm going to deselect. Now I want to select the rest of the chair area and delete that. So I'm going to come along through here and kind of just trace close along the edge. And I want to go far enough out so that I know I'm not going to run into my paint in any of the other frames. The paint kind of moves along this path. And so I want my selection to be always outside of the paint because I don't ever want to accidentally delete some of my selection. So I'm going to now say select inverse, and I'm going to delete the rest, and then deselect, which is Command D. Now I don't need to save this. I just need to stop the action. And let's test this to make sure. So I'm going to open up my second JPEG, my second frame. And I'm going to try and run this action now. I'm going to come up here to delete BG, and I'm going to hit play. And perfect, that is what I wanted. I have all of my paint selection right here. I don't need to save either of these. What I want to do now is use Adobe Bridge. If you all used, if you all did the 100 image assignment and used Adobe Bridge, then you're familiar with Adobe Bridge already. It is a great tool to help in organizing your files and help doing some of these image processes. So once I have Adobe Bridge open, I'll find my files, I'll select them all. And then I'm going to come up here to Tools, Photoshop, Image Processor. My image processor window opens, and I'm going to look at number 1. So process files from Bridge, 12 images. I have my 12 images selected. I'm going to save it in the same location. And I don't want to save them as JPEGs because they're already JPEGs. I want to save them as PSD files because I want to be able to access the transparency that my action creates. And then the very last step, preferences, run action. We're going to come down here to delete and delete BG. So I will hit run and let's hope it works. Looks like it's doing pretty good. Yeah, that's great. We can see right here I have my paint. So that again, what I was having trouble with before is that some of my paint was getting deleted with my selection. So I really had to make sure that like I was figuring out the area that I could select within each frame, within the first frame that would overlap on all the frames. And so I have this done. I can bring this into After Effects now. So I have After Effects open, and I'm going to say Command I for import, and I'm coming to Paint, PSD, and I want to. We can import as. Let's import as not as a Photoshop sequence so that we have all the frames. I'm going to import all the frames as footage. I'm going to make a new composition. I'm going to say 1920 by 1080, and I want 12 frames a second. And let's call this loop, or let's call this frames. I will come down here, take all of my frames, drop them down, and grab the end over on the right, take them all the way to the single frame, and I think these might be labeled backwards as well. I'm not 100% sure. Let's see. So selecting 1 to 12, right clicking, keyframe assistant, sequence layers. Okay, that's the right order. That's great. So still with all of them selected, I want to hit rotate. Okay, it's rotated too far. And I also want to hit scale. So I hit R and S on the keyboard, and that lets me access those. And that's with all of them still selected. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're just going to shorten our composition to this work area where we have our loop. I can hit N on the keyboard and that will make this blue line go over there, or I can drag it. I'm going to trim the comp to work area. So right click in this area or control click, trim comp to work area. All right, now I'm going to make a new comp, call this loop. And I can drag my frames into loop. And now if I want to have more of this, I can right click, keyframe assistant, sequence layers. So I duplicated my frames, I right clicked, sequence layers. Now I have about 5 seconds of this animation. So that's more of a usable amount of time. All right, so next thing I want to do, I'm going to I want to bring in my water footage that I have. I'm going to put this down underneath, scale this up. So I'm going to actually pre-comp this. So I'm going to shift, select all of them, control click, pre-compose, and this is like putting it in its own folder, remember? So actually, this one should actually be called loop, or we can say 5-second loop. And I'll say adjust composition duration to the time of the selected layers. That's good. So it will be 5 seconds. Hit OK. Now, just to stay organized, I'm going to come back here and rename loop. I'm going to call this full sequence. And I rename by clicking, hitting return, and then I can type. So there's a few things that we need to deal with. We probably should cut off this edge right here. So first thing I can do is right click, add a new mask. I'm going to come up here to my pen tool and cut that off. We want to make sure that we aren't accidentally cutting off any of our paint. And now I'm going to come up here to my effects and presets and add a simple choker. You can see that helps get rid of this center line that I had drawn, and it also just slightly cuts the edge of our loop. I'm sorry, it slightly cuts the edge of our paint. So the further we go, obviously the more it eats into the paint. But let's just keep it at like a 4, I guess. There's a few things that maybe I would want to clean up. That this right here is kind of weird. I don't know why that's there, but I could either do that with a mask, or that's something that I could have tried to that I could clean up in Photoshop. One of the nice things about importing as separate frames. So what frame is this? Frame 9. So if I go back to my files right here, my PSD, and go to frame 9. And I can take my eraser tool or my selection tool, probably. now I'm going to save. If I go back to After Effects, now that has been adjusted for me, so that's great. Now I want to show you the nice sort of transparency effect that we have going on. We're going to actually use this layer right here as a Luma layer. So I'm just going to duplicate my 5-second loop, and I'm going to say on my lower 5-second loop, I want to use the top 5-second loop as the Luma inverted matte, and watch what happens. So we start to get some of that nice transparency, and we can do some adjusting to this. So to really try and like help y'all understand, remember, so a Luma layer doesn't have to be, a Luma matte doesn't have to be in black and white. But let's try threshold, apply threshold to our matte. And so remember, whenever we're working with Luma, it's the black and white values that are either letting the transparency through or blocking the image. And so now if we turn this off, so we still have Luma inverted on, but we turn off our top layer, we can see how that's affecting it. So we don't want threshold actually, because threshold really is it's only like black or white. It's not giving us any soft gray tones, but right here it's still a little bit too gray. So I can take contrast, brightness contrast, and I want to put this on my top layer, my matte layer, and I'm going to bump up the contrast. Let's see what that. So you can, there we go. That looks nice. Let's also see. Okay, so now one more thing that I want to do is I want to add a fill. Because this is not quite the color that I want. I want it to be much brighter, and I could try like coming down here and adding brightness contrast to my lower level, my like actual paint level. I'm sorry, layer, my paint layer. I could try adding brightness contrast to that, but it kind of blows it out. What I can do instead is I can add a fill to this bottom layer, and that's gonna make it pop in a really nice way. So if I want to use red, I mean, you can kind of explore what colors show up nicely. Yellow's nice. And this really comes through using this Luma matte layer. I'm going to turn off the Luma inverted matte. I'm going to say no track matte, and I'm just going to turn the top layer is not on right now. We're turning off the fill, and here we have this. So all we see is this original layer, but we aren't really getting any of that nice transparency. And remember, the Luma matte is what can help provide us that. So whenever we turn on the Luma matte, we can look and we can see. So our Luma matte, the darker values are whenever we use Luma matte inverted. The darker values are where we are getting color, and the lighter values are where we're getting transparency. So in all of this white space right here, that's why we're getting more transparency. So when I turn Luma mat inverted back on. We get that nice transparency. And again, doesn't look awesome until we add that extra fill, which is really nice. And last thing that we could do just for fun is a gradient ramp. So instead of a fill, I'll have a gradient ramp. I'm just going to turn that off, and I'm going to say let's have red and white and yellow. So now it's kind of moving in between these two different colors, and we could even animate the positions of the gradient ramp if we wanted. So I hope that makes sense. This is just like another option of how you can use materiality, paint, paper, pencil in a After Effects in a digital setting. I think this looks really nice. So thanks. If you have questions.